Well, good evening. Welcome to another episode of Fins to Forest. I hope y'all are strapped in because we're just going to jump right to it today. No funny business. We're not going to beat around the bush. We're not going to hem-haw to kick it off. We're going to get right to the good stuff because what we're talking about tonight is something that I've become a huge fan of recently. That it's something I've been looking forward to talking to for a little while. Just wanted to give myself just a little bit of time to kind of get my initial thoughts on it. But I'm excited to throw some stuff out there and see what experiences y'all have had and kind of what your thoughts on tonight's topic are. What your thoughts are, not is, what your thoughts are. Before we do, verse of the day, it's coming from 1 John, chapter 4, verse 7, and it is this. Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. What a great reminder that is that we hear in a lot of different verses. But you can never say it too much. Let us love one another. We could use as much of that as humanly possible right now, and as heavenly possible. All right, so there you go. First of the day, 1 John chapter 4, verse 7. All right, so today, this episode is really, I'm going to say, this is the first one this year where I'm really trying to hone in on what 2021 mission is for Fins to Forest as a whole, which is, as opposed to just, here's some fish catches, here's us fishing, here's hunting, here's some deer kills, is to getting in depth and actually providing some stuff that's useful for people. Some useful information, whether it's fishing, whether it's patterns that I'm finding, baits that we're using. I say I and we interchangeably. Sometimes, obviously, I'll have some people with me if you've watched this channel for a while. Or it all last year, sometimes it's just me. Sometimes we've got some other people thrown in there. But anyways, if it's deer season, not just, oh, look, there's a deer that we shot or didn't shoot. Here's why I think that we put ourselves in front of these deer. Here's why I think we caught the fish that we did. And you've heard that if you've watched some of the recent fishing videos, whether it was the Chickamauga practice video, the one fishing with Bradley, Stringfield down there, It's what I'm wanting to hone in on this year, just from the thought process of, hey, let's make something useful out of this. And that's no different. First podcast that's really focused on this year. And tonight the topic is Garmin Panoptix / Livescope / whatever. And just fishing electronics in general, but mainly the Garmin. Now, disclaimer up front. This is not here's the best settings for Livescope. Here's the best way to utilize it. This is hey, I just put it on the boat. There's a lot of guys that are getting their boats rigged up this time of year. It's February 1st right now. But it's time of year where a lot of people are getting geared up for tournament season to get underway. A lot of guys are getting their boats rigged up. Probably the first time a lot of people have gotten Panoptix and Livescope put on. And like all of the changes that we've seen in electronics the last few years, there's a learning curve associated with everything new. But the Livescope in particular, and granted, I've had it for just over a month, so not long at all. I've had it on the lake 7 or 8 times. But oh my goodness, I feel like if you compare this to things like side imaging and down imaging, over the course of my relatively short time on this earth and in the fishing world, we've seen it. And everybody that fishes for any length of time, we see all these different technological advancements happen, whether it is down sonar, getting away from the flasher, going to whatever your first sonar was. I honestly couldn't even tell you. I do know that the boat that I had before the boat that I have now, the old 2003 Skeeter ZX225, it still had the Teleflex flasher right there in the dead center. It wasn't hooked up to anything, but by gosh, it would turn on, and you couldn't read it because it had no transducer. Anyways, not the point. You come from the Teleflex to regular sonar, and I'll never forget watching 2008 Lake Hartwell Classic, watching Alton Jones using side imaging. And we were at an in-house church retreat. I was at the Wilson's house, and I had to set my alarm. I told everybody the night before, I said, hey, is anybody, I don't remember what time it aired that morning of that church retreat, but I want to say, it might have been 7 o'clock in the morning that the first or second day of the Classic was going to air. And I told everybody, all these other high school and college kids, I was in middle school at the time. 2008, I was 12. Yeah, I was in middle school. So all the middle school kids, the high school and college leaders, I was like, hey, is anybody going to be using the TV at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning? Because I got to get up. They're like, what are you watching? I was like, it's the first day of the Bassmaster Classic. It's airing on it's going to be on ESPN. And one of the guys said, what is that, ESPN 17? And I'm like, no, it's ESPN 2. Anyways, that being said, and I remember waking up and watching Alton Jones talking about finding those transitions. I think it was like rock to mud transitions that he was out there catching them on a jig with. Anyways, and then, of course, the whole world fell into the side imaging, down imaging path. And when my first exposure to side imaging, I'm going back in history a little bit here, is my learning curve for side imaging, I feel like it was huge. The first time I remember using it, so we had an 18-foot bass cat. We put an 898 side imaging Humminbird on it, and never really used it for what you would want to use it for. Didn't know what we were doing at all. Dad and I were clueless with it. Then when I went off to college, freshman year, I had our 03 Skeeter that had, I think we started off with a 998. I think we had a 998 at the console. And I was like, by gosh, second term of the year, we're at Kentucky Lake. It was early March. It had just had a ton of rain and snow. The water was 40. I remember it was 44 degrees and chocolate milk. I think I made some stupid post about me catching a drum. And the first few days were terrible. And I didn't catch a bass because all I did was idle around. And I looked at that graph. And every time I marked a stick. And I would turn around and throw back. By gosh, I was oblivious to the fact that I could look and realize that there were no fish sitting anywhere around every single thing I was graphing. But if I saw if I saw a rock, if I saw a trail, I was like, by gosh, I'm marking it. I'm going to turn around and fish it. And I had 3 days of, and this is actually kind of a good comparison to how big of a learning curve was for me. Is I had 3 days of graphing stuff, and I legitimately was on Kentucky Lake, freshman year of college, fished it for 3 days. And I never caught a bass. It was either 2 or 3 days, and I don't think I had a bass bite. I ended up running around trying to catch drum because I wanted to get a bite. I had a little school of drum figured out, and I was around trying to catch them. Anyways, and then the fourth day, whatever it was, I graph a little 100-yard stretch of bank, and it just blows up. There's bait everywhere. I turn around and catch 13. I'm like, oh, this side imaging thing really works. After 3 days of not catching a fish. But for me, compared to the hype and all the noise and the excitement around side imaging and down imaging, I feel like with my roughly, 7-8 years of using it, I probably got 20%, 30 max out of it that potential was there. I for most of that time was not a huge offshore fisherman. Love it now, but didn't really use it as well as I should have out there, and just didn't take the time to learn. I didn't have people around me that were willing to help me get it figured out. So that being said, and I use it fine, get it. I honestly use the down imaging and just now I can't remember what it's called. Well, Humminbird, your turn on switch fire, maybe. Yeah, just being able to watch yourself jigging on the down sonar or whatever. Probably caught 5 or 6 fish like that in years of using it. And so with now, obviously, all the noises, Garmin, Panoptix, and Livescope, and it's been around for a few years. It's not new. But I decided this winter, I was like, all right, I had on my boat last year. So I've had the boat that I have now, it's the ZX250, 2015. I've actually got a boat tour video up on the YouTube channel, but I've got it. When I got it, I put 2 Humminbird 15 Soluxes on it. I'm not necessarily somebody, I've got to have 2 12s or 2 10s or whatever. Back there at the console, I thought I'll run 2 15s and one up front, one on the console, and see how I like it. And I'm not a huge fan of those graphs in general. They process really slow. They were glitchy for me quite a bit. Touchscreen going in and out, and just really didn't like them. And then you see all of the leaps and bounds that we're making with Livescope and Panoptix in this winter. I've got to get that. And what my plan had been was, I'm just going to sell my 15s, sell everything I've got, and then go buy maybe two 10s and the Livescope transducer. And I'm looking and online, I thought I could sell mine pretty quick and didn't. I think a lot of people have kind of had the same experience I've had, the same problems with the Soluxes, at least the 15s. I know the Soluxes are good stuff, and Humminbird is great stuff. I don't know if it's just that unit in particular. Maybe I just had some bad experience with them. I don't know. But had a little bit more trouble selling them for what I wanted to than I expected. But lo and behold, Facebook Marketplace. I started looking at the Garmin graphs because I'm thinking, like, I don't know if I can make as much money. I might have to sell mine and then shell a little bit more out to get what I want. And lo and behold, there's somebody on there that's got a 10 echo map, a 12 echo map, and a Livescope transducer. And they're wanting to trade for new Lowrance units or Humminbird Soluxes. And I was like, do I have a deal for you? Because everything, I try pretty hard to keep all my stuff in good shape. And so there's nothing wrong with them. We talk a few days and he's like, yeah, man, I think I'm good to go. I'm like, the Lord has guided me to this fella from Alabama. So we meet in Chattanooga, swap our graphs, and I've got the Livescope that I'm on. But now my concern is, and this is where I think a lot of us will our minds are or will be if you're just getting into this Livescope game, is how long is it going to take me to figure this out? We all watch Patrick Walters smash him at Lake Fork. You see all this footage online of people, I mean, practically watching the fish breathe and then come and grab the bait. I mean, just awesome looking returns and images and videos. And after having limited success compared to what I expected or thought I should have with side imaging and down imaging, I'm like, okay, how long is it going to take me to get this stuff dialed in and to get it figured out? And I said that I felt like my Humminbird, or not Humminbird, but my side imaging and my down imaging learning curve is about this big. Panoptix has been about that big. It is so easy to use. It doesn't take, now it takes a little bit of research, obviously, like any of this stuff does. And I'm going to share the resources that I've used that I felt helped shorten my learning curve so much, direct you to them, let you learn from the same people that I've learned from this last month, because I've caught more fish because of Livescope in the last month than I ever did watching them bite it on down imaging or Switchfire, whatever you want to call it, whatever the equivalent is to Lowrance. I've never had Lowrance units, but all the ones I've used, I've liked. They're a whole lot more user-friendly than Humminbird, in my opinion. I'm not trying to crap on Humminbird. I've had them for a long time. I like them a lot, and I like the people that run them, that run Humminbird a lot, at least the people I've had experience with. There's nothing wrong with them, just preference. But anyways, digress. It's been so easy. And so first thing I did was I did not rig my Soluxes onto the boat, onto my Skeeter. I took them to Trent Palmer, let him put the Sonar Pros wiring harness on it, because once I did get them rigged up, I was having voltage problems right off the bat. I've got a video of that on Instagram. If you're not familiar with Trent Palmer in Georgia, who owns Sonar Pros, oh my gosh, there's a reason you see so many of those elite guys running his wiring harness on their boats, is because it is the deal. As far as protecting your units from voltage drop, having just clean, easy wires running through your boat, it's so nice. And especially if you're somebody running 2, 3, or not 2, but 3, 4, or even 5 units. I've seen a lot more people this year that are running 5 graphs on their boat, which is just insane. I saw one the other day that Trent had rigged up. I'm pretty sure it had 2 12s at the console. You go up front, and it had a Lowrance, a Humminbird for the 360, and a Garmin for the Livescope. And it just was not a mess, but just like, you got all this stuff. And I'm not smart enough to run all that stuff at the same time, but that's besides the point. The fact that his harness will let you run 5 graphs on the same amount of batteries and not have any issues with it is incredible. But anyways, I'll put a link to, I just tapped the mic. That was probably a really bad noise. I'm going to put a link to Trent and Sonar Pros in the bio of this so you can get down there and check it out. But anyways, first thing that I did was I was just going to rig it up myself. And that's another reason I realized how great Sonar Pros is, because I stripped all the wires out of my boat, no problem. Unhook them from the graph, strip them out. They're in the harness, and they're in the coating tubing, whatever you call it. Stripped it out, no problem. And I got the wiring from the fella I traded with, and it took me hours and hours and hours running that stuff, 2 days of running that stuff. But let me tell you, the accomplishment, the feeling of accomplishment, it was like when you go cut the grass in the summertime, where you get done, you look at it, and you're like, man, I did that. What a good feeling. Same thing I had rigging the grass. I'd never rigged all of mine completely on my own in the boat before, but we did those. I did those. And by gosh, what a feeling. This was on Christmas Eve. Did I meet him on Christmas? I met him the day before Christmas. 2 days before Christmas. I don't remember. It was right before Christmas because it was Christmas Eve, and I'm outside, and it had dropped from about 45 to 30. And I started in a t-shirt, and I ended up wearing my heavy coat in the like haily snow. Anyways, got them rigged up, turned on, not having any voltage problems just because I'm running only 2 graphs. That's got to be the reason. But anyways, Russell Marine products. If you've shopped online for electronics at all lately, you've probably seen Russell Marine products because when I was, they were popping up everywhere on Bass Boat Central forums. Yeah, you see them sharing things on there a lot. You see them on Facebook Marketplace quite a bit, it seems like. But they've got a great database of videos, not just for the Garmin Livescope, but for a lot of your different electronic rigging stuff. And rigging your boats with whatever equipment you have. I'm sure they've got it. But they've got a really, really good, easy to explain wiring video for your Garmin's and for your Livescope. So definitely recommend that. I'll link that video in the bio as well. So Russell Marine Products is where I got all my rigging information. And there's a few different videos out there as far as playing with your settings to get you started. The one that was the most helpful to me starting off was, and while I'm talking, I'm gonna Google his name to make sure I say it correctly. I believe it's Joe Suckup, but it's the Bass Tank. The Bass Tank on YouTube has got the greatest, what for me at least was the most helpful video in getting your Panoptix at least usable, where I could go out, understand where most of the settings were, what I needed to tinker with for the water conditions, and be ready to go. To where that very first time out, and this just shows you how short the learning curve is, at least to me, I thought this was quick. First time out, Dad and I went out for an hour one day. Dana's family was coming in before the wedding. Wasn't going to have a lot of time. So I said, we're only going to be on the water for an hour, but I've got to go and try this stuff. And I mean, you were counting crappie in the stake bed right out from Concord Marine on land. It's like crappie, 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 crappie. Oh, look, we'll pan it this way. Well, there's another stake bed. Look at them swimming around that pole right there. I got get my crappie jig hung on the pole, shake it. I shake that stake bed and you see all those fishes. Whew. And I was like, okay, this is the real deal. Another thing that had me not concerned, but that I was like, I'm just gonna have to figure that out, was the guy that I swapped graphs with. He had said, I like it on this ball mount. He was tall too. I'm tall. He said, I like it on this ball mount. It gets a little closer to me being tall. He said, because you're always adjusting it, whether you're adjusting it for the depth, you're adjusting it for how far out you want to be looking. If you're on the forward view, which is about the only thing that I've used so far. He said, but you're going to be playing with it a lot. And I was like, great. He's like, the water conditions, you're going to have to change your settings if you get, even throughout the day to get the clear picture, the clear return. I was like, all right. Like, so this is going to take some learning. There's going to be different formulas for different conditions. And to a certain extent, that seems to be true. Granted, I haven't fished in just a whole wealth of conditions in a month. Most of my time's been, there goes my pen, at Chickamauga. We had our first BFL of the year down there 2 days ago on the 30th of January, and had a ton of practice playing with that Panoptix, but really just limited to there. However, there was one day that we went to Parksville, so opposite of Chickamauga as far as how the lake sets up, deep, clear, rocky, and put it in, and immediately the image is just garbage. And so went back to that Bass Tank video and made all the adjustments that they say to make when you get in that deeper, clear water, turning things on like TVG and adjusting your noise reject, and it cleared that up, and it worked great. But the learning curve, I'm really just here to say, don't be if anybody is, don't be intimidated by the Livescope learning curve. It's really, really small, in my opinion, especially compared to a lot of the other electronics that we're used to. It's just super, super user-friendly. The biggest advantages that I've had from it so far, and granted, I know this is just a month, but it's like I found this amazing thing. I just want to shout it from the rooftops. Again, you'll hear this from a lot of the videos that I watch. You hear the same thing. But one, seeing how the fish react. You're not going to roll an Alabama rig or a swim bait or something by a fish and it not react to it. Whether it's going to bolt, it's going to follow it, it's going to bite it, it's going to do something. It's been really cool to just understand all the different reactions. And I haven't seen them all, but the reaction that different fish have to different baits and different conditions, and also seeing just how often they're moving. I don't know how many times I've made a cast, I get halfway back to the boat, and what's cool, it's like you're trying to snipe fish all the time. Because I'll make a cast. We were fishing some marinas down at Chickamauga the other day, and I'll make a big long cast, and as I'm working that Alabama rig back or swim bait or crankbait, whatever, it's like I'm spinning that trolling motor around just looking for fish. But there's quite a few times where you'll get your rig halfway back to the boat, whatever you're throwing, and I'll look, and over here to the opposite side, I'll see a little pot of fish sitting on the bottom, and I'll reel it in. And by the time I get it in and go to make a cast, I can't find them because they're moving. And you see that with the big schools of fish too, whether it's bluegill or crappie or white bass, is that, you can take that foot and spin it, obviously 360 degrees all around the trolling motor, and that transducer is looking right down the arrow if you set it up right. And you can watch, all right, white bass school starts here. Here they go around the boat. All right, now they're at the back of the boat and they're swimming away from us. Just seeing how often fish are moving is a crazy thing. And then just how often you're around fish. You're around fish all the time. And it may not be what you're targeting, but it's just amazing being able to pull into the spot and it's like, oh, there's fish. There's a pot of fish over there. There's a little school of fish over there. It may not be what we're looking for, but hey, we've been passing all these. There was once a couple of weeks ago where I just got lucky and called my shot on it because we'd been catching some white bass. And I'm like, all right, there's some white bass there, and catch, through a silver belly just to try and catch some. And then you've got all these suspended schools of white bass, and then there on the bottom, there's a little pot of 3 or 4, or a little bit bigger return. I was like, I bet those are bass right there. And roll an Alabama rig over the top of them, drop it into them, pow, and catch a big fish, but it's bass. And you're like, man, that is so cool. But anyways, it's been a lot of fun to tinker with. And it didn't take very long to figure it out. So I'm going to throw up right here. I'm going to throw up some fish catches that I've had the last few weeks. Not a lot. I've got, Garmin makes an app called Active Captain where you can get on there, link it to your graph. I'll link it to the Echo map up front, and you can screen record. Doing your screen record is really easy. I have not done that yet, so I don't have a whole lot of footage of just the straight up graph. But what you're going to see first is a jerkbait. If you're watching this on YouTube and not just listening to it, but what you'll see first is a video of a couple spotted bass following a jerkbait, and they followed it for probably 10 feet, 10, 15 feet or so. And every time I'd stop it and pause it, they'd look at it for a couple seconds and they'd turn and go the other way. And it was cool because you could see them, if you look really close, you could see them turn around because that blip, that return gets a little bit tighter where that fish is spinning, and then it gets wider again and they start to swim away. And every time you pop it 2 or 3 times, they turn and come back to it. So after it's set and they turn to move away from it, go pop, 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 pop. And one of them turns around and just rushes at it, and you go pop, pop one more time, and he gets it, and it's about 3.25 pound spot. That was awesome. Had a couple times where I'm reeling over the top of a brush pile with an Alabama rig and marking some fish on the opposite side, on the near side of it, reel it over top of the brush pile, kill it. As soon as it falls into that red blob, doink, fill and grab it.
Right there, the little red ones. That's your buddies.
So it's been really, really cool to see it working so quick. And I'm gonna hint at something right here, something that may be in the works for a future podcast episode. There would be a whole another dive into getting you honed in on Livescope and telling you some what, honestly, no joke, is some really, really useful stuff. But I got to figure out exactly what I've stumbled upon. And here's what I mean. last week, and I won't say, well, last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, I get an Instagram DM. Hey, Sam, this is so-and-so. I've got a question. If you wouldn't mind giving me a call. Sends me his number. Well, I click on it, and I'm like, I don't think this person meant to send me this message. It's one of the pros on the Elite Series, the Bassmaster Elite Series. And I won't say who it is yet. I don't think he would care, but also I don't really know him that well. And so I'm like, hey, I don't know if you meant to send me this message or not, but I'll give you a call later today. He said, yeah, I did. I meant to send it to you. He said, yeah, just give me a call anytime. So I have no idea what he's wanting to talk to me about. So I give him a call. He's like, hey, he said, I hope it doesn't sound weird, but we've been watching your Instagram the last few days, and I posted a couple just still shots of me holding a fish with Panoptix in the background in that jerkbait video that you just saw. And he said, dude, he said, that is the clearest Livescope image that another Elite Series pro, and some of the guys at Garmin have ever seen. He said, we have no idea what you're doing to get it to look that way. I'd had it out 3 trips, and I felt like a homeless man who had just pulled an old lottery ticket out of his pocket, and they're like, hey, you won the lottery. He's like, huh? It's like, yeah, that ticket, that's a winner. You won the lottery. I was like, I don't think I did. And they're like, no, really? Because he's like, I don't know if it's this setting or this setting, but you're doing something. And he's like, man, we'd love to figure out. He said, I'd love to figure out how to get my graph to look like that, because that is so, so clear. And the settings that he listed is like, man, I'm going to be honest. I said, I've had it out 3 or 4 times. I said, a couple of those settings you mentioned, I said, I don't even know where they're at in the graph. I don't know how to find them. I said, and honestly, when I first went out that day with Dad, I tinker with the settings for about 10, 15 minutes, got it looking what I thought looked pretty good. And it's like, that works. Looks good. The only thing that I like different from that bass tank video with Joe or John, I didn't look it up. I was getting too distracted as I talked. With Suckup was he likes the black and green, emerald and black, emerald, whatever color scheme. I really like the blue and the red because it kind of looks like the more traditional sonar, or at least some of them. And it just, I don't know, the contrast between the red and blue. I just am a fan of that, which is the only thing I've really kept it on and running on. A lot of the commercials you see with it, it's like it's the black and amber or brown and gold. And I just can't, I don't see great. I've got glasses I'm supposed to wear, but that just doesn't stand out as well to my eyes as the blue and the red does. But anyways, and so I was like, man, I said, I'll go home and write all my settings down and send them to you. I don't know if it's just a lucky thing or if there's some combination about what I've got programmed in there, but it's like, you're welcome to it. I said, but I want to know if it works as well and if it looks the same on your graph as it does on mine. So we went by and I hollered at him and I said, hey, it's just curious if you got a chance to look at that or not. He said, I haven't yet. He said, but they just got, I think he just went to Florida, headed down here before the kickoff of the Elite Series this year. He's like, I'm going to get a chance to look at it this week. He said, I'll let you know if it looks the same. So potentially, if by some stroke of pure lightning luck, I've hit a jewel mine. I've hit a gold mine. I don't know where that came from. I've hit a gold mine with these Panoptix settings. I'll let you know. Because he's like, yeah, he said, man, this group of elite guys is like, dude, we love it. He's like, I've sent it to everybody, and we don't know how you got it to look like that. I was like, well, even a blind hog finds an acorn every once in a while, as my father would say. So we may end up having some really cool, in-depth conversations. Maybe I can get them on the podcast. Maybe I can get a whole group of them on the podcast. Stay tuned. Keep bugging me about it, and I'll keep bugging him about it. And maybe we can make that happen and get some really cool info laid out there. I think it'd be a fun thing to do. But anyways, let's see if I got anything else on the docket tonight that I wanted to lay out. Not particularly. Shout out to Curtis Crook. Curtis is my link partner for the BFLs. Not a great weekend for us. I'll do a different podcast on the Chickamauga weekend. There is going to be the tournament video coming out this week. But Curtis went and finished 4th on the co-angler side. Weighed 2 fish for 12 pounds. He had one that weighed 8.1. Caught his PB on the co-angler side. And my co-angler, Chris Hamby, also got a check, finished 14th. Had 8-something pound, 8.3, I believe. 8 something. Anyways, so a good day for some of my buddies and new buddies in the BFLs. But Next tournament for us, it's going to be March 6th, the Morristown Marine at the one and only Watts Bar Lake. But until then, yeah, we're just going to be doing a little fun fishing, hopefully, and getting geared up for Watts Bar. This is really exciting. And if you watch the first podcast of the year, talking about some of our goals, we've got fishing goals, we've got hunting goals, and we've got social media goals. So looking ahead to next year, something that's going to be really important for me is being able to grow social media. So you look here let's look at YouTube. We started off at 241 subscribers this year, trying to grow it to 1,000. And then watch hours. Last year we had 379, trying to get to 4,000 this year. Those are, as best as I can tell, the two requirements where you can apply for monetization on YouTube. But I'm not really concerned about that. But that's not true. I am, a little bit at least. But here's what's so cool. And this is why I'm saying thank you to those of you that are watching this or listening to it and have checked out our YouTube channel. Last year, all of 2020, we had 397 watch hours. So people streamed our stuff for 400 hours, which is awesome. This year, and we're 1 month into it, we're at 261. 261 in January. And last year, total, we were at 379. So that is so cool. Last year, we had 4.8 thousand views, and we're already at 2.5. So, I mean, we're on track to beat last year's by the end of February. And then we're just then getting started into the rocking and rolling of tournament season. So thank you to those of you that are watching and subscribing and that have followed us on Instagram. It's exciting. I feel like we've gotten a little momentum, and that's a cool thing. So if you're watching on YouTube, would love it if you subscribe if you haven't already. If you found any sort of benefit or anything useful in this at all. And if you're listening, maybe you want to hop over and check the YouTube channel. I promise that jerkbait video, that fish biting that jerkbait on Panoptix is worth your time. My co-angler this week at Chickamauga, just while we were trolling around blue water waiting to take off, I said, yeah, come up here and look. He said, yeah, I've been wanting to look at that Livescope thing. I said, well, come up and look at it. And I had it in the water for 5 seconds. He said, dude, I've got to get me one of those. He said, that is freaking awesome. I was like, you're not wrong. It is. Ooh, I just thought of this and nobody's going to do it. That's totally fine. But you want to really make my day, and you don't have to by any means. Tag Garmin in this because I'm a huge fan, and I would love them to know that I'm a huge fan. But go ahead and tag them in the comments. Send it to them. It would make my day. All right, but seriously though, thank you all for everybody that's watched and listened and subscribed and done all that. There's a lot of ways you could be spending your time, and I appreciate you for spending it here. So, with that, we'll wrap up, and we'll say have a good evening, whatever evening, morning, afternoon, break a day, dusk till dawn, whenever you're listening. I appreciate it. Have a phenomenal day. God bless you guys, and we will see you on the channel next time.